Okay,
I'm Liz.
welcome to session 2 of Compassionate Mediation Tools for Your Practice Now. And what I wanted to remind you is that it's a practice that helps you create a better relationship, no matter what that relationship is. And again, right there are couples, but consider any relationship as one that you can have together with someone using these skills. So if someone comes to your office and they're unhappy but hopeful, either as an individual or couple, these skills will work. If they come in, they're unhappy and stuck, then you can help them get unstuck. If they're separated, again, they can come in and talk with you, even during a separation. I've helped people in the middle of a divorce, either not divorce and create a new marriage, or divorce with a whole way of doing it that I call a self-led divorce, meaning they're coming from their highest self, their best self, their calm, clear, and compassionate self, and they actually restructure their family instead of breaking it out. But just remember that what we're helping people do is not find a perfect person to love, but as Sam Keen said, learning how to perfectly love another imperfect person. And what compassionate communication does are these 4 things. It connects you to your highest self, and we'll talk about how to get to self. One of the ways we get to self was the meditation we did last. There's ways to breathe, go for walks in nature. You connect to your highest self. You help your clients connect to their highest self. You help them let go of limiting beliefs. And of course, that's what our managers do and our extreme parts have. They all have limiting beliefs based on our early childhood messages, and we judge other people based on those beliefs. We put up walls around our heart to avoid being hurt. We see our partners or others through filters of judgment. And when we can let go of those limiting beliefs by working with our parts or working with our clients' parts, there's more self-energy. And then when those managers and firefighters or extreme parts calm down, you get to the exiles that have the pain from the past. And you help your individual and couples clients do the work to unburden pain from the past. If they're with their partner in your office, sometimes it's very helpful for the partner, if they can stay in self, to witness that inner work. But as you unburden pain from the past, let go of limiting beliefs, connect to your highest self, you start relating from your heart. And that's where the hope comes in. Because compassionate communication helps all relationships. Where compassionate mediation takes over is where you teach compassionate communication, you share empathy, and then you help people explore their options and make self-led decisions. So an option for a couple isn't just to stay or go. There's a lot of options, including how to talk about every issue, how to look at what's a problem with their sex life, how to renegotiate their skills of parenting or financial responsibilities. So there's a lot of options that people can look at. And unfortunately, they don't know that. Sometimes when they're stuck, they just think, should I stay or should I go? But what you want to help them do is make self-led decisions. So what compassionate mediation training does is give you the tools, the techniques, the videos, the handouts, the outlines, and the support. And I'm so glad you're here. And a few of the tools that we mentioned already, and we'll get to, are the initial interview, the introduction, the magic wand question, which you remember is when I try to get someone's intention. And you can do this with any one of your clients for anything, because if you know where they're going, then you can ask them what's in the way. And what's ever in the way is, again, a part that you can do some work with. We went over the interview template. We'll do it again. The Geneagram talks about their family of origin. We're going to talk today about the miracle of empathy, the 5 steps to receive what you want and need. And we did the Self and Mountain last week. And then we'll add some of the next ones next week. There are continuing education credits available for those of you who want them. And if you've signed up for them, then there will be that little quiz I'll tell you about. And because you're going to get a Compassionate Communication Academy and Inner Balance, that gives you NBCC approved continuing education and Internal Coaching Federation CEUs. So let's take here's what I want you to take away from the training. Whoever you're working with, whatever their issues are, your job is to be your best self. You don't have to have all their answers. You don't have to know the legal and financial details that I'll give you. You just have to stay present and believe that they have their answers. And when you do that, you create an atmosphere of trust, not just in yourself, but in their higher self. And you model for them how to speak from yourself and their selves and really begin to have empathy with each other. The initial interview that I do really is a shorthand for how to get as much information as possible. And when I do that initial interview, I'm listening for a lot of salient points that I use throughout the rest of the time I work with them. And then when you teach them empathy and give them legal and financial information, just enough to give them to stay ahead, it leads to their self-led decisions. So again, it's not about what you are doing, but who you are being. And the best service you can give is to be yourself and to work on whatever practices you need to stay in self. Because again, it keeps you calm, clear, compassionate, confident, connected, courageous, creative, curious, all those aspects that you need for me to look at later. What do you do to get in self? What are the things you do, whether it's to meditate, walk in nature, but see what you do to get in self and practice that daily. And then we're going to help our clients get to self, because you know what it's like when a client is not in self. They come in feeling like a victim and they tell you their story about everything that's happened to them, or they sometimes are coming in from an aggressive stance of all the anger that they're feeling. You might notice that they act nice when they're with their partner, but secretly you can see that they're furious, and they sometimes show you that as soon as their partner leaves the room. But a client who's not in self can't participate reasonably because they're feeling so overwhelmed, betrayed, retributive, fearful, depressed, neglected, go on and on and on. So our job is to help clients get to self. And again, it's not what they say. It's not necessarily the content. But I am listening when they're speaking about content, if they're speaking from a part, not for a part, but from a part. Because it's how they say it. When they learn to say what they want and need from self, it changes the dynamics of the relationship. So the process of communication is often more important than the content of the subject matter. So no matter what I'm talking about, if I'm talking about money, children, sex, family of origin issues, responsibilities, household duties, I'm always got my radar up to see who's talking. Are they speaking from self or are they speaking from a part? Because if they're in self, the conversation goes on. If they're trying to debate an issue from their parts, I actually stop the conversation. Sometimes I'll ask them to take a breath, literally, and then speak for the part that just spoke. And I'll show you how I do that. But here's what we're looking for. When you interview someone, you are a parts detector and a self cheerleader. So if you think of nothing else from your initial interview, just take these 5 steps with you. How much self is present? How much can you see your client or clients showing up with any sense of calm or clarity or compassion for the other one? Sometimes you don't see any, you just see their parts. You can notice the parts of your client and their partner, or their clients if you have 2 of them in your room. You can notice how they're sitting, if they're withholding, if they're angry, if they're glaring, if they're avoiding. And you can notice how they relate to each other. But you can find all this out in the initial interview, even with one person, because they'll give you their partner's perspective. I always want to know about the influence of the family of origin. And that's why I do the genogram quickly. Because when you know what the family of origin is like, you get to understand what makes your clients who they are now. And it's not only your understanding that's helpful, it's their partner's understanding. Because sometimes when the partner remembers that their husband or wife came from a family where they were one of 10 children and there was an alcoholic parent and nobody ever nurtured their husband or wife the way they needed, there's a lot more compassion for the fact that the adult version doesn't have those skills yet. So it's a way to remind each partner that we do come in with some baggage. And the more we understand and can have compassion for each other, the more healing there'll be. And the last part of the initial interview, or the times you're with your clients or each session, is how much more hope can you bring in now? Meaning, even though they're not sure what compassionate communication is, even though they're on the brink of the diving board thinking they have to make a decision now, and if they don't, they're getting stuck, and just helps them to take a breath and recognize that what they really want to do is heal what they need to heal and come from self. And then the answers will be much easier. So here's the training again. Here's the initial interview. I'll come back to that in a minute. The brief review, just so that you get it. If you look at it in the upper left here, I ask a general information. And then I ask each alone. I'm looking for these parts. I'm just kind of doing a ding, ding, ding. What parts am I hearing? The genogram tells me a little about their family dynamics. And at the end, I always ask, is there anything else you want me to know in case I've left something out? And is it okay with you if I refer to what you've told me? That's a big one. Because I want to use what they've told me, if I get their permission, to help their partner understand them. And if they tell me I can't use it, I won't. But if they can, then it helps me be specific, both when I'm going over myself and parts, and also when I'm doing the self up the mountain. Because when I do that self up the mountain meditation, I invite them to let go of their own parts. It's not a generic meditation. They've already told me how they're managing their lives, what they've exiled, what they do to get extreme. So when I do that self up the mountain, I'm inviting them to let those parts relax while they go up as high in self as possible. I do a genogram, which again, just gives me an overview. And it doesn't look like this. It looks like a line, 3 lines. I'll put brother, sister, sister. But it gives me an overview. And then when I start asking questions about, did anybody drink? Were they happy together? How do you all get along? Where are you in your family dynamic? I'm listening for parts in their family and parts of them. And I'm getting from the family of origin genogram, again, their birth order, how they related growing up, how their relationships are now. Is there anything major that happened in the family of origin that caused them? You know, if your parent dies at an early age, it's an important piece because you don't necessarily get the nurturing. You might exile your sadness. You might overcompensate with being perfect. So you want to find out what happened in their family of origin and if there's any alcoholism, affairs, mental illness, abuse. So I'll show you how to do that. What I always do when I meet with someone for the first time is find out what their biggest concerns are. And when I say the process, I find out what their biggest concerns are, first of all, about coming to see me. It's often the first question I ask them. If I meet with couples and I meet with one at a time, as soon as one member of the couple leaves, I'll wait a beat, let the one in my room, in my office, relax a little bit, and you'll see them relax and their walls come down. And my first question is, how do you feel about being here? And when they tell me how they feel about being here, I already know what parts are up for them. Are they sad? Are they scared? Are they hopeful? Are they angry? And that sets the stage for something I need to know. I always ask if there's any fear of physical abuse. I often ask in a session what needs to happen this week, because some people come in, finances might be an issue. It might be unsafe in their living environment. They might be worried about their children. So I want to see what needs to be covered so I'm sure I can cover it. And in the either one having an affair, do I get that sometimes in the first session? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. I want to know how contentious is the living arrangement. And if they have children, what are their ages and what do the children know about the relationship that's going on? Are they being affected by conflict or withholding? Do we need to discuss the children in the first session? And sometimes you have to find out, especially if people are thinking about a divorce, what do they want to share with their children and when? And again, the family of origin, was their addiction, abuse, and what did they learn or fail to learn from their family of origin? And then I go into my parts work that I'm going to tell you more about, but just as a reminder, what we're listening for is what are the exiles? And when I'm listening for the exiles, a lot of people exile their anger, especially codependents, because it wasn't safe to be angry. So they may be more depressed, but they have to learn how to say they're angry and set a boundary. And this is kind of the inner child work, the what about me? Who's going to love and care for me the way I need? So I'm listening for that. And I'm noticing, how do they manage? What pseudo self are they putting on that makes me think that they want to look like they're in self, calm, clear, and compassionate, but they're really feeling a lot of those exiles underneath. So instead, we talk about the pseudo self after I've done their initial interview. And we look at what extreme behaviors they have, how they're addicted or depressed or putting up walls. I see an affair as an extreme behavior from which a couple can recover. And sometimes an attorney becomes a reactive extreme part because they're mad as hell and don't want to take it anymore, and they just find somebody to fight it out for them. So when the couple are together, and what you're listening for are the family of origin issues, how to listen for the exiles, managers, and extreme parts or firefighter parts, as Dick Schwartz says. And what I want them to take away from the first session is that they've done the best they knew how to do. And if they had known how to do better, they would have. But now it's time to learn new methods of communication. And if they have children, it's for the sake of the children, for certainly. But even if they don't have children, learning how to communicate and heal the past sets them free for whatever they're going to choose to do in the future. Create a new relationship, separate or get divorced. That learning how to compassionately communicate, relate with empathy, is a necessary part of the process. And again, if they're open to it, I mentioned that their partner is an angel, because they're going to trigger them in just the right ways to see where there's burdens from the past that needs healing.